Hey, New Life Church, this is Pastor Jake here. I am very excited to be with you guys again as we continue to read through our TRAC Bible reading plan. I'm very excited specifically because we are beginning my favorite book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. And so we're starting with Genesis 1, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. I don't know why I like Genesis so much. I think it's because I like the beginning of things, like origin stories. And so today, as we talk about Genesis 1, there's something, as we read this, I want to remind us. Something we need to remember is that Genesis was written by an ancient author. Traditionally, we believe that Moses was the author of Genesis. And so sometimes what we can do is when we come to Genesis, we come to it with our 21st century scientific worldview in mind, and we try to insert that in the Bible, and we can't do that. That's not what should be done, because the author of Genesis did not have the same mindset. And so God used the author, Moses, to communicate a very specific message through the creation story. And so I think there are three things that I notice, especially as I've read through the creation story a number of times, is there's three different things. One, the first thing is that we see that God is in control of everything. That's a pretty easy message to get from the creation story. But it's more importantly, thinking about who wrote this. Moses, in the ancient world, notice in the creation story, God creates the light, the dark, the sun, the moon, the stars. He creates the water, he creates the earth, he creates the vegetation and the animals. And he creates something that all the other nations that surrounded Israel believed were gods. See, the other nations, Egypt and Mesopotamia and all those other nations, they believed that the sun, that there's a god of vegetation, the water, they were all gods. And Moses is saying to Israel, he's reminding them, Yahweh alone is God, and he's the one in control of everything. And so that's something that we should remember as we read through the creation story. God is in control. I don't know where you're at in life right now, but we need to remember, God is still in control. The second thing I notice is just the intentionality that God uses to create everything. You know, in days 1 through 3, it reflects days 4, 5, and 6. Days 1 through 3, we see that God creates the dark and the light, and He creates then the water and the land, and He creates the space in days 1 through 3, and then 4, 5, and 6, He fills it. In days 4, he fills the dark and the light with the sun and the moon and the stars. Days 5, he then fills the fish with in the sea, the water that he just gathered together in day 2. And then in day 6, he fills the land with animals. And it's crazy to think that God had a specific purpose and intentionality for how he created everything, because all of the other nations that surrounded the nation of Israel back then, they thought that everything was just random. It was almost like an accident. It was just an aftermath of cosmic battles between the gods, and all of a sudden the earth was there. It was never intentional, and God created everything with a purpose, and that's something we also need to remember. God is in control, and he created everything with a purpose. And the last thing I noticed as I read this is we have to realize humans, we were the very last thing to be created because we were the climactic point of the story. He did something different. When he creates humans, he does something very different. First, he deliberates with himself. Everything else, he just communicates, he just speaks, and it exists. But with us, he actually deliberates with himself. He says, hey, let us make man in our image. And that's the second thing he does with us that's different. He makes us in the image of God. And what that means is that he gives us the authority to represent God to the rest of the world. He gives us the ability and the authority to rule and have dominion over everything. And then the last thing we notice when he creates humans is in the first 5 days, he looks at everything and says, man, it's all good. It's good. But then after he creates humans, day 6, he said, it is very good. God created everything for us so that he could be with us. And as I read through the creation story, this is the only thing I can possibly think of, is God is in control. God has a purpose for everything. And God has a deep desire to be with us. We are the climactic point. We are the great desire of his heart. And so something that we can remember today as we continue to go on and as we continue to read Genesis is that God's in control, He has a purpose, and He desires to be with us. God bless you guys.